They didn't always have factories. They didn't always have supply lines. Sometimes they didn't even have real weapons. And yet, across the battlefields of World War II, soldiers still found ways to kill, sabotage, and survive. Not with polished steel or stamped serial numbers, but with bed springs, jam tins, fertilizer, bottles, soap, wire, and pure desperation. What you're about to hear isn't movie fantasy. These were real weapons, built by real soldiers, from household junk. And some of them were terrifyingly effective. Welcome back to Life in Wartime WWII. This is where we go beyond the textbooks and into the raw, improvised reality of survival. Let's get straight into it. The zip gun that turned pipes into pistols. When resistance fighters and stranded units couldn't get firearms, they built them. The simplest version was the zip gun. A metal pipe became the barrel. A wooden block became the grip. A nail or bolt became the firing pin. Rubber bands or springs provided tension. Load a single round, pull back the striker, and release, crude, ugly, often dangerous to the user, but deadly at close range. These weapons were assembled in basements, barns, and bombed-out workshops. They weren't meant to win firefights. They were made for ambushes, for assassinations, for taking a real gun off an enemy. One shot, one chance. That was enough. Some versions were disguised as walking sticks or bicycle pumps. Others were hidden in table legs. This wasn't engineering. This was survival engineering. The bottle bomb that turned kitchens into arsenals, glass bottles, fuel, oil, soap flakes, cloth, that's all it took. Molotov cocktails weren't just protest weapons. In World War II, they were mass-produced by civilians and soldiers alike when anti-tank guns were unavailable. The soap wasn't random. It thickened the fuel so it would stick to armour and burn longer. The rag wick was soaked and stuffed into the neck. Light it, throw it, and suddenly a tank's engine vents, optics or tracks were wrapped in fire. These were built in kitchens, schoolrooms and hidden workshops. Thousands at a time. They couldn't always penetrate armour, but they blinded crews, set engines ablaze, forced tanks to stop, and sometimes forced crews to bail out into gunfire. Fire doesn't care how modern your army is. The jam tin grenade that became a pocket nightmare. When factories couldn't deliver grenades, soldiers made their own. A common version used empty food tins, jam jars, condensed milk cans, filled with explosives scavenged from shells or mining charges, then packed with nails, wire, ball bearings or scrap metal. A simple fuse was inserted. Light, count, throw. They were unpredictable. Some exploded too soon. Some didn't explode at all. But when they worked, they shredded bodies and cleared rooms. Trench raiding units loved them. Resistance groups relied on them. They could be built quietly, hidden easily, carried anywhere. They turned kitchens into armories and trash into shrapnel. The tripwire bomb that made footsteps deadly. One of the deadliest improvised weapons wasn't thrown. It waited. Using string, wire or fishing line, soldiers rigged explosives to doors, stairwells, trees and narrow paths. Step forward and tension triggered a striker. Detonation followed instantly. Some used grenades with pins tied to door handles. Others used pressure plates made from boards and scrap metal. In forests, wires were strung at ankle height. In buildings, across hallways. The materials were simple. The effects were brutal. These traps weren't about stopping armies. They were about terror, delay, exhaustion, making every movement feel like a gamble with death. The fertilizer bomb that shook entire blocks. When military explosives ran out, chemistry stepped in. Fertilizer, cleaning chemicals, fuel, and even sugar were repurposed into high explosive mixtures, packed into pipes, boxes, or fuel drums, ignited with blasting caps or homemade detonators. These devices were used for sabotage, blowing rail lines, destroying supply depots, demolishing bridges. They were heavier, harder to control, and devastating when they went off. The terrifying part wasn't just the explosion. It was the fact that almost anyone with knowledge and access to household materials could build something capable of flattening buildings. The spring gun that fired without a shooter. In jungles and forests where ammunition was scarce and patrols were constant, soldiers built mechanical killers. Spring guns use bent saplings, door springs, or bed springs attached to loaded rifles or shotguns. A tripwire released the tension. The weapon fired automatically at chest height. No soldier needed to be present. The forest pulled the trigger. These devices were used to guard camps, deny paths, and ambush patrols. They were silent until they weren't, and by the time the sound came, the damage was already done. The smoke maker that blinded entire positions. Not every improvised weapon was meant to kill, you know. Some were built to disappear. Soldiers used sugar, rubber, motor oil, and, well, even household chemicals to create thick smoke bombs. These were packed into tins or bottles and then ignited. They flooded streets, trenches and bunkers with choking clouds, smoke-covered retreats, hid sabotage teams, confused snipers, and really turned organized defenses into chaos. Sometimes survival meant not being seen at all. The blade trap that turned doors into weapons. A door doesn't look dangerous, does it? That's exactly why it worked. Knives, bayonets, or just sharpened scrap were mounted above door frames, tied up with cord. You open the door and the blade swings down, face level, throat level. These traps were easy to build and honestly horrifyingly effective in tight urban fighting. They punished speed, they punished carelessness, and they turned normal spaces into kill zones. The war didn't always come from across a field. Sometimes it came from the hinge of a door. The time bomb made from alarm clocks. Clocks were everywhere, and that made them perfect. Alarm clocks and kitchen timers were dismantled and wired to detonators. Set the time. Walk away. Let the mechanism do the rest. These devices were used for delayed sabotage. Factories, fuel dumps, rail yards. A bomb that could explode hours after placement meant soldiers didn't need to be nearby. The damage came later, when no one was ready. It turned something meant to wake you up into something you never woke up from. This is the side of World War II that rarely gets polished documentaries. No marching music, no clean uniforms, just men and women turning everyday junk into tools of war because, well, they had no other choice. It was dangerous, it was desperate, and it was brutally effective. If you want more real stories from the trenches, the streets, and the shadows of World War II, make sure you subscribe to Life in Wartime WWII. Share this with someone who thinks history is boring, and stick around, because this channel exists to uncover how war was really lived. Not in textbooks, but in survival.